Comparison is the thief of joy. Have you heard this saying before? I'm not sure who made this saying or who originated it, but it's so true. Whether you're comparing your English with somebody else's English or comparing the way you want to sound with the way that you really sound, it's really going to take away your joy. Like, thieve it, steal it. How can we take this struggle of comparing ourselves and do a mindset shift to remove that comparison? If you don't know who I am, I'm Morgan, the head coach and the founder of Yash Accent, where we help committed English learners living in the United States improve their pronunciation to speak clearer and feel more confident. So, pronunciation training is not your typical English class. We don't just learn rules and memorize this and learn lists. No, we learn how to use the mouth muscles in a way that you can speak clearer, but we also talk about your feelings and your mindset because that's often standing in your way of feeling like a confident English speaker. So, I want to introduce you to the idea of the gap and the gain. So, when we talk about our English goals and how we measure progress, this can be either we're measuring with the gap or measuring with the gain. If have you ever felt like you've just learned English for so long or you've been speaking for so long, you've reached a plateau and you don't feel any real progress at that point? Does that sound like you? Especially if you already live in the United States, you speak English on a daily level, you may not be experiencing these giant leaps of progress that you did at the beginning. Well, I want you to think about this. Progress is like a moving target, and that target changes when we reach new levels. So, when you were first learning English, maybe learning grammar or new vocabulary was that level that you wanted to reach. You got it. So the target moved. Then you wanted to be able to watch TV shows and understand. You reached the target and then it moved. The target is always moving. So we want to ask ourselves the level or the target that I've set for myself with oral English, especially English pronunciation. What is that target? Is it achievable? Or am I measuring my progress against an ideal? Like, I will feel confident in my English when I am like a native speaker. Is that a reasonable goal? Are native speakers perfect speakers? No, definitely not. Okay. The typical native English speaker doesn't even know about pronunciation, doesn't even know about grammar. You've probably experienced that. You ask them to teach you something and they just don't know how to explain it. And then even those who are well versed in this area, like myself, an accent coach, we will make mistakes. Think about yourself in your native language. Do you ever make a mistake or do you speak perfectly all the time? Be honest, you probably make a mistake, right? And that's okay. So I want you now to then think, what is my target? What is my goal? Identify that. But now we want to understand the gap that we talk about is the distance to where we are now and where we want to be. So that's the gap. But we can close this gap by a simple reframe. Our brain is full of neurons, and these neurons can be rewired. It's kind of like if you are walking in grass. If you walk down that same path multiple times, will the grass stay high? No. Now you'll have shorter grass and an easier place to go. The same is true with our brain. If we're always thinking in a certain way, like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, your brain will jump to that area, will jump to that mindset because the grass is low. When you are thinking new thoughts, then you can rewire your brain. So I invite you to rewire your brain to live in the gain. Instead of thinking, how big is my gap? I invite you to think, how big is my gain? How far have I already come in English? So, why don't you measure yourself, not to who you want to be, but to your previous self? How far have you come? For example, um, can you understand natives better now? Do you understand why they say what are you doing instead of what are you doing? Do you understand that link? Or do you walk into Starbucks and you feel confident to order your oat milk latte? And do you speak to your American spouse and laugh at their jokes? Those are all gains. Even if you don't feel that you have that gain, I still want you to think about where were you before? Where are you now? When we think about where we are now and where we once were, that's measurable. We can actually measure that. We can see the progress. But when we're trying to measure where we are now, where we want to be, it's wonderful to have goals. And in our classes, we focus on goals. But when we only think about where we want to be, it's not very measurable because that target is always moving. So if you're really working on having more joy in learning English, I invite you to think more about how far you've come rather than, I've been learning English for X amount of time and I still can't do X. Or I've been living in the United States now for 3 months and I still hate talking on the phone in English. Or I've been working for an American company now for a few years and I still don't want to speak up. That could be true, and we'll work on overcoming that in our sessions. But does that mindset empower you? Does that mindset keep you motivated? Maybe, but it also may be discouraging you. So let's change that. I've been working for an American company for 3 months, and I can understand my colleagues even when they're joking. I've been living in the United States for a few years, and I just feel like most people get me. That is empowering. So rather than living in the gap, how far do I have left to go? Why don't you live in the gain? How far have I come? You may be unhappy or unmotivated with your English or stuck on this plateau because you're not sure how to measure your progress. So, when we talk about American English pronunciation, how do we measure progress? Number one, can you now pinpoint specific sounds when you watch TV, listen to a podcast, or talk to a native? Do you know why they say attitude instead of attitude? Do you know why they say bathroom instead of bathroom? Well, if you've been taking lessons with me, I'm sure you know. And if not, I invite you. Let's do it together. Let me help you train your ear because with that trained ear, that's progress. The first step to change is awareness. So now you are aware of those sounds. Awesome. Number two, you speak and you can self correct. If you make a mistake, you can self correct. If you say free instead of three, you can say, oh, I meant to say three. And not only can you self correct, but you don't feel bad about self correcting. You've overcome that mindset. You're happy that you can improve and you can correct yourself. Number three, another way to progress, actually being able to pronounce the sounds, being able to say goal instead of go, knowing that dark L, O. Those are three measures of progress. What's another measure of progress? Joining an American English training program and sticking to it, practicing each day for 10 minutes, coming to your classes. Why is that progress? Because it shows that you're true to yourself and that you're true to your investment and you believe that your words and your voice have value. What's another way of progress that you can measure? It's not only about the way that you sound, but also how you feel. Do you feel more comfortable to jump into the conversation? Do you feel more comfortable to pick up that phone and order takeout and not worry about the way that you sound? Do you feel like you can watch a TV show without subtitles and still get the main point? Now, I want to be honest with you. When we talk about language progress and specifically pronunciation progress, it's not something we're going to check off and say, okay, I'm perfect, I'm done. Language is always changing. And think about this, the way that you speak when you're 5 years old, when you're 15 years old, when you're 30 years old, when you're 50 years old, even in your native language, it changes because of your life experiences, where you've been, where you want to go. Your vocabulary changes, even sometimes the way that you sound changes based on who you're around. So language is always evolving. And that's what will happen with you for your English. But when you start living in the gain rather than the gap, you can notice your progress, measure progress in a healthy way, and feel grateful for how far you've come. So remove comparisons, have that mindset shift, and may you find joy in your English language journey. Hope to see you soon.